Hi, I'm Kenny Anderson, Director of Multicultural Affairs for the City of Huntsville, and welcome to Impact. Each week we bring you information about exciting things that are happening in our community, and today will be no different. I want to introduce you to our guest today. I want to dive right into this discussion because I want to make sure we get as much time as possible to talk with him. He's a very special guest today, and we're going to be focusing on the topic of citizen diplomacy today. Rick Ruth serves as Senior Advisor to the Assistant Secretary and Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy. And in this capacity, he advises on all aspects of international exchange policy, programs, and management. Recently, he has taken on a number of other responsibilities, and we're very glad that he's here with us in the Huntsville community at this time to talk about some of these exciting things. Rick, welcome to the broadcast.
Thank you very much. A great pleasure to be here.
It's good to have you. Listen, we in this community certainly talk a lot about things related to diplomacy, things that focus on our citizens, things that involve people really understanding things about how government works and how international relations takes place. And we know that the International Services Council is a leader in this initiative and oftentimes promotes programs and initiatives related to this. Let's start out our discussion for the sake of what we'll be talking about today with maybe a fundamental understanding of what you're talking about when you say citizen diplomacy.
The perfect place to start. Thank you very much. Well, the main reason that I'm here in Huntsville is to give a big thank you, a big State Department shout out to the community of Huntsville and the citizens of Huntsville, because they have over the decades made this world a better place through a variety of different kinds of actions. Next year is going to be their 50th anniversary since the International Services Council has been in existence. They have entertained hundreds of foreign visitors, thousands of hours of community service. They've contributed also, by the way, hundreds of thousands of dollars over the years to the local economy. But from the State Department point of view, it's the fact that when you meet Americans, you meet American values. And that's what we have here in Huntsville in a very unique way, because it's such a gathering point for people from all around the world, and that makes it a very special place. And I want to be here for the events that they have to bring citizen diplomacy together, which is simply something that every citizen can do. You don't have to be a state legislator. You don't have to be a professor of political science. Every citizen can do something to make the world a better place, and that's what the citizens of this community have done for decades now.
And see, that's what excites me about what we're talking about today. The whole idea that this is really one of those each one, reach one opportunities. The idea that you don't have to go and get a degree to be a better person, to make the world a better place, to understand and appreciate differences that exist in communities and embrace all of those things as healthy, positive, productive things that really inject life and opportunity into a community. And as you said, the ISC, of course, has been a leader of that for almost 50 years now in Huntsville, which prides itself as a leader in so many areas. What would you say the significance, in addition to the accolades that you might give our community, what is the significance of having a community that certainly focuses on high tech, that sent a man to the moon, that is on the cutting edge of all of these digital technological advances and initiatives today, focusing on something like global and institutional diplomacy?
The thing that the citizens of Huntsville know very well is that we can't solve anything alone. We always have to work together. We have to work together within our cities, within the United States, but now we have to work together globally. We need to have networks of people that have shared values. We need to make common cause, because so many of the problems that concern people here in Huntsville, that concern us in Washington and elsewhere, are issues that don't care about borders at all. This could be global climate change, it could be wildlife trafficking, it could be human trafficking, it could be pandemic disease like the recent Ebola outbreak in West Africa. These are things we have to work globally on, and so to the extent that leaders in their fields, leaders in their communities, professors, scientists come to Huntsville and learn how we do it here, what the American experience is, and we learn what their experience is, that makes us all stronger and all better to grapple with these problems that concern all of us.
Yeah, you know, the world changes from time to time. There are these seminal events that take place that just seem to alter the course of history or place its footprint in a significant way. I'm thinking about the work that you do and have been engaged in for so many years, the work of the International Services Council. And I think about two things. I think, first of all, about the internet. And everyone with the invention of the internet began talking about this global economy. And, you know, you no longer had to think about shopping, for example, as a trip down to the store, to another state where that favorite store was. But now it's worldwide and it's accessible to you. That was pretty significant.
Enormously.
The other way that the world changed significantly was on 9/11.
Yes.
And we have never been the same since. Coming out of 9/11, what are the major lessons that we have perhaps learned and perhaps even still learning about this whole notion of global diplomacy, international relations, and the opportunities that the many opportunities that still exist today with regards to how we interact with one another, not just as nations or communities, but as a world community?
It's fascinating that you should choose that, because one of the things that the International Services Council does here in Huntsville is they work with the State Department's International Visitor Leadership Program. This is a program that every year brings 4,000 to 5,000 leaders from all around the world to different parts of the United States, including Huntsville. And after 9/11, and just as a personal note here, I was working in the State Department at that time on 9/11. I could see the Pentagon smoking outside my window from just across the Potomac River. I was there when they evacuated the building, and no one knew what was going to happen next because the news came in different directions, towers in New York falling, a plane crashing in Pennsylvania, and there were false rumors of explosions near the White House and elsewhere. So a very, very confused and tragic day. And when we went back to work the next day and talked about what can we do, because we're the educational and cultural affairs folks, we're supposed to be reaching out to the world. And so what could we do? And the first thing that we reached for, the first tool in our toolkit, if you will, was the International Visitor Program. And we reached out to religious leaders. We reached out to, of all faiths, including imams from Muslim communities all around the world, to bring them to the United States and meet regular Americans and experts in foreign policy, but also Americans leading faith communities and faith organizations, because we knew those people needed to talk. And one thing we've learned is that the internet doesn't replace face-to-face, human-to-human contact. It's a marvelous thing, and we could never live without it, but it doesn't replace the kind of conversation you and I are having right now.
And that kind of conversation is so important at so many different levels. We know that in Huntsville, across our school systems, and we have three major ones in this area, Huntsville City School, Madison County Schools, and Madison City Schools, that there's a lot of discussion about these kinds of things in classrooms, not just history classrooms, but across the curriculum even. And the idea that it's important for young children to understand differences, to appreciate and value the very things that I think make our lives rich, the diversity of people's experiences. It would be a very dull world if we all had the same thing happening all the time. And it would also be a very non-progressive experience as well, because our ability to move forward is really predicated upon our ability to lean upon those that have different pieces of the puzzle to be able to assemble. And the work that you do has to be fascinating, because I know you get an opportunity to do a lot of different educational initiatives, a lot of things throughout this country and around the world to be able to bring people together and bring higher levels of understanding to the table. What do you see going forward as some of the major challenges, aside the ones perhaps that are pretty obvious right now, some of the major challenges to making the kind of progress that you and I probably and many others share in that hope that we really become a society globally where people care about one another and really have an interest in one another, really want to see the best in one another. What are the major challenges that you see going forward?
Well, you touched on two of them. You mentioned values and you mentioned society. And one of the things that we really need to work on now is what we call the whole of society approach. Because particularly since 9/11, the kinds of challenges that our country faces, the kind of world we want to see, a peaceful, prosperous, safe world for everyone, that's not something that governments can do by themselves. Those are bigger challenges than governments are up to. They need all of American society and other societies as well. And that's what the educational and cultural programs do. They bring societies together, because it's not enough to have two leaders have a handshake or sit around a table and decide on something. If we're talking about issues such as peaceful resolution of conflict, respect for other people, opportunity for women and girls around the world, those aren't just the stroke of a pen. Those require sustained, complex societal engagement. And that's where communities like Huntsville and communities around the United States come into the equation, because they show people how the American experience operates. We don't have all the answers. We know we don't have all the answers. Heaven forbid that we should ever think we're perfect in any way, shape, or form. But what we have here in the United States is several centuries of experience in trying to make a society work with maximum rights for people and maximum freedom for people. And that's an experience that's well worth sharing with the rest of the world, while at the same time we learn from their experience. You know, Thomas Jefferson said in the Declaration of Independence that we owe a decent respect to the opinions of mankind. And a lot of what public diplomacy is, a lot of what exchanges is, and citizen diplomacy is just that. It's a decent respect to the opinions of mankind.
Right. Okay, so we're talking about global diplomacy. Citizenship is, I'm saying citizenship 101 is a fundamental aspect of that. I know at our local level we've been looking at some ways to be able to promote that dialogue and be able to have a meaningful discussion within our community where people are becoming more aware and engaged in that process. What are some of the most beneficial ways that people can become more involved with not just an understanding of how government works and their responsibility to society, but also this whole notion of global diplomacy that exists out there that kind of sits over us every day, especially in a city like Huntsville that's an international community where people are doing business as international companies with other companies, where people as students are studying in environments where there are people from all types of different countries. I know UA Huntsville, I heard recently, has over 120, I believe, different nations represented there. I know Oakwood University has quite a few international students, Alabama A&M University. I mean, this is a multicultural, international, interfaith community. So what are some things at the local level that people can do that are best practices, perhaps?
Great question. We talked earlier about the fact that you don't have to be a specialist in this field. You don't have to be able to devote 40 hours a week to it. There's lots of things you can do. First of all, you can work, to make a plug here, you can work for the International Services Council of Huntsville, or we're also have been meeting with the International Visitor Center from Jackson, Mississippi. They're sort of coming together for some of the summitry, if you will, here. You can host an exchange student in your family. You can make sure that your high school has exchange students, or that they offer foreign languages classes. You can have your children, or you yourself, study a foreign language. Study abroad is a perfect way to do it. So there are all those kinds of things. And you can host somebody in your family, even just for one evening, when these visitors come through. And I've met, I should pause for a second, more than 380 of our exchange participants have gone on to become the head of state or the head of government of their own country.
Wow.
This includes some of the famous names from another generation: Anwar Sadat, Margaret Thatcher, Indira Gandhi, Tony Blair. These were all participants in the International Visitor Leadership Program.
Wow.
But it comes up till today also. One should never doubt the lasting impact of these programs. Some years back, we brought on the International Visitor Program an educator from Pakistan, a name that no one particularly recognized at the time, Ziauddin Yousafzai. Probably no one recognizes his name today. except he went back home and helped share his beliefs and his experience with his daughter, Malala Yousafzai,
Wow.
who just won the Nobel Peace Prize.
Wow.
So not only do we engage the individuals who are physically in front of us, that we see, that we talk to, that we host for something, but the ripples spread out from that engagement on for generations and all around the world. So I can assure you that long after our visitors have forgotten the deputy assistant, undersecretary of whatever at the State Department, or the adjunct associate assistant professor of this and that at the university, they remember the family, the Huntsville family that had them in their home. And they remember their names, they remember their kids, they remember everything about them, and that's a very special part of this program.
It truly is. Are you more optimistic now going forward about the future of international relations?
You have to be an optimist in this business. Like you, we're in the people business. And if you're in the people business, you know that you're going to have good days and bad days. There's no predicting what people will do next in some cases. But overall, I think, yes, I'm very optimistic. I see people joining together. I see the internet is helping them make common cause, not as a substitute, but as an addition to people coming together directly. And I believe that we will continue to move forward, perhaps slowly, perhaps a little bit backwards every now and then, but overall, we will make progress forward.
So you got a lot of students out there that perhaps talk about these kinds of subjects, and they look for practical ways to get engaged. They may be aware of the State Department, for example, and the whole breadth of work that's done and how that trickles down to local levels. And perhaps they're thinking this afternoon, maybe some of them are watching, parents, teachers are watching, and they have ideas perhaps that they'd like to share with somebody at the State Department. How would they go about doing that?
There is a great website called Expand Your World. It's a website that we began at the Bureau. You can just go to your web browser and type in Expand the World, and we'll probably be one of the first couple of things that pops up. And it talks about not only all the different programs we have at the Bureau, which students from high school age on up can participate in, and which others can participate in, or opportunities to host, also opportunities locally to join with organizations like ISC, and that's probably the single best place to go.
It sounds like a great resource, and it's good to know that something like that is out there and accessible to citizens everywhere.
Because these programs, to be quite blunt about it, are very good for America. I mean, we want our young people to have global skills. It's a competitive global marketplace now. They need international perspectives. They need foreign languages. They need to know how other people think, how the other cultures and businesses and societies see the world. There was a survey a few years back of the Fortune 1000 CEOs. 65% of them said that they want employees, they have to have employees who understand the world and have an international perspective, and study abroad and exchanges, or studying foreign languages, or meeting with international visitors in your own community. So one of the ways to get those kind of global skills that we want young Americans to have.
And I know you would agree that that's probably one of the best, most effective ways to approach that process, and you can't be as successful as you could be without having those skills available to you.
Exactly. It's a real investment for the future, for the individual, but for our whole country as well.
Rick, Ruth, I wish we had more time. This is a great conversation, but anytime you're in Huntsville, come by and see us.
My pleasure. I'll do it.
Rick is a senior advisor to the Assistant Secretary and Acting Deputy Assistant Secretary for Policy, and we thank him for being here as a part of this broadcast today.
Thank you.
I want to thank you for being here for part of this broadcast and for all this great information that we shared. We hope that you took some notes today, and we hope that you continue to support this broadcast impact, as from one week to the next, we bring you information about exciting things that are happening in our community. For Impact, I'm Kenny Anderson, and I'll see you again on the next show. Bye-bye.